You lose again and think it's your teammate's fault, but not yours? I have bad news. Even if you had the most kills in the match, you are also to blame when you defeat. Mlbb is a game based on teamwork, proper map rotation, and turret destruction. If you want to win the match, it's not about how many enemies you kill. The winning team will be the one that destroys the opponent's base. And welcome back, my friends. In this video, we're going to go over the most important things you need to know about macro game and the most common mistakes players make so that you see the word defeat on your screen as rarely as possible. But first, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Here, you'll find many helpful tutorials on all heroes and various tips to help you win. Alright, let's dive into the basics. The game is all about micro play and macro play. In simple terms, microplay in Mobile Legends is how well you bring out your hero's potential. It's about your speed and accuracy with button presses, how you pull off skill combos, your item choices, and how you dodge or kite opponents. Macro game is all about strategy, working with your team, positioning yourself well, and focusing on key objectives around the map. At first, you must understand the composition of your team and that of your opponent. The game can be early or late, so you need to know in which phase your hero has the most impact. Most fighters are strong in the early game, while mages, marksmen, and assassins usually shine in the late game. For example, if your jungler is Diroth, Mardis, or Julian, then you can easily invade the enemy jungle, take down the enemy ADK or mage, and play aggressively from the start. If your team has assassins like Ling, Hayabusa, or Nolan, they'll need more farm support early on and should avoid early fights. They start to come into their own at the mid-game. For instance, take Layla or Mia. These marksmen need strong support early in the game. Ganking for them is key since, in the late game, they can destroy the enemy altar in just 10 seconds. It's best to have a mix of early game and late game heroes on your team. This will make your lineup much stronger overall. In this section, we'll also talk about drafting and counterpicking heroes. Drafting in Mlbb is the process of selecting heroes before the game, where teams take turns banning and picking characters. Banning is simple. Focus on overpowered heroes, typically those in the meta who are hard or impossible to counter with your lineup. Remember, the team with this symbol next to it gets the first pick, so be mindful not to give a strong hero away to the enemy team. Understanding basic counterpicks is a key part of macro play. For example, Diggy counters heroes with strong crowd control like Atlas, Tigreal, Carmilla, and Gatotkacha. Lolita can block most mages and marksmen with her shield. Vixana can shut down Glue, and Saber is great against Ling or Hayabusa. Next, let's talk about map rotation. At the start of the game, the main focus of rotations should be to assist in killing the turtle, which spawns at the 2-minute mark and grants gold and experience to the team. So, it's important to reach level 4 and be ready to support your jungler. Since the turtle spawns in the EXP lane, the XP laner should rotate over to create a numbers advantage at the objective. After that, make sure to support other lanes by ganking rather than taking their farm. Usually, the roamer, mid laner, and jungler should be ready to jump in and help out if teammates are under pressure, whether it's a quick ambush, some defense, or helping to push. Also, the XP laner can rotate to mid, the turtle, or even the gold lane if the chance comes up. Here are a few ganking rules to keep in mind. Rule number 1. When ganking, make sure you have the numbers advantage, like 2 versus 1, 3 versus 2, or 4 versus 3. Rule number 2. Make sure the risk is worth the reward. For example, ask yourself if a kill on the gold lane is really worth missing out on farm. Rule 3. If you're being ganked and no one is coming to help or it's taking too long, your goal should be to minimize the damage you take. Communication and coordination are huge parts of macro play. To play well, your team needs to work together and communicate effectively to respond quickly to what's happening in the game. Using quick chat. It's important to use short phrases to warn your teammates about the enemy's moves, rotations, or when you need help. For example, if your opponent leaves the lane or you can't see enemies on the map, it's probably a good idea to watch out for an ambush. Let's talk about the Lord. The Lord is one of the most important objectives in the game, especially in the mid and late game. Here are some key points to keep in mind. Be ready for Lord. Before going for the Lord, make sure your team has control of the map. Clear nearby lanes, place vision around the area, and check that the enemy team isn't in a position to contest. Everyone needs to be ready and know their role. For example, the jungler, marksman, and fighter should focus on attacking the Lord, while the mage and tank zone out the enemies. Their job is to keep opponents away, protect the team, or engage the enemy if necessary to secure the objective. Pick the right moment. If the enemy team is down a few players, that's your chance to grab the Lord safely. Use it as bait. Sometimes it's smarter to use the Lord as bait. Start attacking it to lure the enemy in, then turn the fight on them when they're out of position. If your team secures the Lord, what to do next? At first, keep an eye on the lanes. When the Lord starts moving down its lane, make sure all 3 lanes are pushing at the same time. This puts maximum pressure on the enemy team, making it harder for them to defend effectively. Your goal is to deal as much damage and crowd control as possible around the Lord. This helps take out enemies and secure objectives while the Lord applies pressure. If the enemy team secures the Lord, your priority should be to group up and clear the lanes of minions to minimize damage to your other lanes. The biggest mistake players often make is trying to fight the Lord in the open or too far from the base. This gives the enemy an opportunity to flank and catch your team off guard. Instead, wait for the Lord to get closer to your base, where it's safer to defend and harder for the enemy to engage. You can also try flanking the enemy from behind when they push toward your tower. Many players don't pay attention to the side lanes and flanks, making it easy to catch them off guard and turn the fight in your favor. What do you do if you can't push into the enemy base? Simple. Freeze the lanes and deny them farm. Keep the minions outside their towers and set up ambushes. This forces the enemy to step out of their base to farm, where you can catch them off guard and pick them off. It's a great way to gain the upper hand and make it harder for them to fight back. Remember, if you let the enemy farm minions, you're giving them gold. Even if you have a 3 to 7k gold lead, they can easily farm their way back into the game. In the end, you might lose simply because you allowed them to catch up on resources. Don't give them that chance. Another common mistake is not knowing when to retreat. If your team has lost a few heroes or key skills, it's better to back off and regroup. If a teammate dies, don't rush in and die trying to save them. Instead, pull back, wait for your allies to respawn, and focus on farming gold or pushing a tower. It's way more valuable than throwing yourself into a fight you can't win. And lastly, in macro play, pushing objectives is key. A push is a coordinated team effort to advance down one or more lanes to destroy towers. The one who destroys the enemy altar wins, doesn't he? Great heroes for pushing or split pushing include Mia, Argus, Bane, Paupal, and Koopa, for example. I've got a video on my channel that covers the best heroes for this role. Check it out. Mlbb, it is not just about kills. Taking down towers, securing the Lord, and controlling the map are what truly win games. Always focus on how you can turn fights or advantages into objective gains. That's how you take control and win the match. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, whether it's about the video, the game, or even if you think I might have made a mistake somewhere. I'd love to hear your opinion and learn from your feedback. Good teammates, low ping, and see you on the Land of Dawn.